again, my friends. Laurie Ashcraft here. I'm your host for VIVA La Evolution, which is produced by Recovery and Resilience Solutions, which is the training and consulting branch of Crestwood Behavioral Health. And again, you'll notice that we picked up some wonderful sponsors. And if anyone else wants to be a sponsor, let us know. It doesn't cost you a cent. We just ask you to help us distribute information. So today, I'm very excited about the guest today. The guest today is a really old friend. We go back maybe 30 years. Beth Stoneking. A lot of you know Beth. And she's going to talk about, I keep interrupting her, but because I have to add my stuff in. But she's going to talk about an early peer support project that she and I worked on in the late 70s. And honestly, she deserves most of the credit for this. I just supported her and kind of moved some barriers out of the way, and she really made this thing happen. And it's one of the first peer support projects that I think happened across the nation in a way that did all the things we like to see. Supported employment, supported education, employment afterwards. It was just an amazing project. And then we tag on another peer project that we did shortly after that we copied from Steve Fields. So, and you probably all know Steve Fields, wonderful man from the Bay Area that did some real pioneering work in the area of crisis and residential programs using a lot of peers. So, okay, without any further babbling along, one more thing is, if you would subscribe, that would help us out. And push the little button too, then you'll know when a new podcast is up. So, okay, here we go. Let's talk to Beth. So, Beth, it's so wonderful to see you again. And I'm just excited about us telling the story, because it really is a testament about peer support starting a long time ago in the vacuum of any of the things we know today. And I just wanted to share with our viewers how that all came about and when it came about. And so you and I were working together, and you had this idea. So why don't you take it from there?
Okay, well, we were both working for Sacramento County, and I had heard that in Colorado, they were hiring clients that we called clients. They were hiring people they called clients, consumers, as employees working in case management. And so
this was 1970 something?
No, it was actually maybe late 70s, but early 80s, maybe.
Yeah, it was late 70s.
Well, could have been, but it started in Denver, Colorado, and they were working with the rehab department there, which I thought was clever. And they were going to present in Albuquerque. And I said, Lori, I think this is something we should try. You said, Beth, find a way for us to get there, and then we'll talk about it. So you and I had some interactions with WICHE, Western Interstate Conference of Higher Education.
And they were in several. Them.
Yes. And so they agreed to get us to Albuquerque to hear this, because they were going to hold a meeting. So we went and we listened. And there was a guy, Paul, I don't remember his last name, but he started this thing, and it was a wonderful presentation.
I remember being excited about it.
Yes. And I said, I had the pleasure of working at case management. And what I had seen was that we didn't. It was more, we didn't really connect with people. It was like numbers, and you clicked off, that you saw them, and not much was happening.
Yeah.
And so seemed to me this would be, and also there was some disrespectful talk,
Hmm.
and seemed like more with those of us who were providing support services than necessary. So you said find a funding source. So there was a community support program under NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health.
This
They
was
had some.
this was after we came back, and we
Yes, we
were
did
both
a little
excited
shopping
about
in
it.
Albuquerque and very excited. And then we came back, and you said find a funding source, because it wasn't like we could just
Well,
unfund something yeah.
right. And we were
So
working for the county, and counties typically don't fund um, unusual things that don't have any
yes,
kind of promising
yes.
practice or best practice thing going on.
Well, and they talked in the presentation about how not all of their colleagues were terribly excited about this.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of concern about, you know, things like looking at charts and talking, what kind of language, all that
Still,
boundary stuff.
still going on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was, we found a community support program grant. We got a little team together, wrote the grant, and we got funded.
I know that was such a miracle. I was actually surprised when we got that funding.
Well, I was really surprised because there were just couple, maybe three or something across the nation.
Yeah,
And uh, we had to be kind of partners with the state of California because
yeah,
they were connected with CSP and IMH.
right.
So
Had to come
um,
through the state.
yes, and
And I'm
another
remembering the
interest.
state didn't have a clue what we were doing.
Well,
It,
no, not at all.
yeah.
And we partnered at that time with San Mateo County
Oh, I
because
forgot about that.
Jay Mahler was down there, and he was getting sent. He thought he knew about this idea. And Jay was somebody who had been in the California Network of Mental Health Clients
Yeah.
with Sally Zinman and, those folks. Howie the Harp. This was back really in the day, Lori.
I have to
And
interject something here because
okay,
nobody remembers this. Well, Jay remembered it, but he's gone. So in honor of Jay, I have to just a little organizational memory here. Jay and I were the first two patient rights people in the state of California.
and Jay is smiling right now
I hope
because
he,
that would be something he was very proud about.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was quite an advocate, Lori.
Yes, he was. I love that guy. I miss him.
Yes. So they were after the same grant in terms of we both wrote proposals,
Okay.
and the state decided that they would fund both of us, and we could look at research in both counties and see if it worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I I mean, we won't go into much detail except what the stigma, stereotypes, and discrimination that came out around those boundaries, that people were freaking out in Sacramento County. The county employees were unionized, and
Yeah.
they were also unionized in uh, San Mateo County. And there was a big deal because they had a huge meeting. And the long and short of it, we won't go into detail because let's hope that history doesn't repeat itself. They actually voted not to participate.
Huh.
So all of the money came to Sacramento County.
Oh, oh, because I'm thinking, uh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
Well, and that is a kind of an important part
Yeah,
because we knew that, really change was not going to be terribly easy. And Jay was brokenhearted.
yeah,
And, a lot of individuals that were working with Jay in advocacy were terribly brokenhearted. So Jay consulted on and we called it consumers as case managers.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be my favorite topic now,
Yeah.
but and we had our own bit of resistance in Sacramento County,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and so what we decided to do was we thought that people needed some training because some people hadn't, gone to finish school because of sometimes their mental health issues interrupted that.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to develop a curriculum and we applied to Sacramento City College. And so we were going to set up a certification program through the college so that individuals could be called students
Mm-hmm.
and get college credit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would accept more people for this than we could actually hire at Sacramento County Case Management, but that other places, contract agencies, might employ them. And it in fact happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But once again, we get to Sacramento City College, and we actually, I thought the president would be the most receptive at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was a person who was differently abled, and so um, he used a wheelchair, and he was not open about this. He was very afraid of, mental illness and
Right.
on the campus and,
Yes. Yes.
a group of people with mental illness. And, there were all the stigmas and stereotypes, and he wasn't sure, oh dear, so that it could mix. But we finally got it approved.
Yeah.
And one of the wonderful things was that uh, it'd be called disability rights uh, office where people would get support.
Yeah.
Um, the head of that office ended up teaching a course about how to use the college, how to use the library,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and he's so connected with the students that at the graduation, Lori, remember, he had his mother come out
Yes.
from the East Coast to
I
attend the
remember that.
graduation.
Yes.
And so it was like, all I can say is those little small victories kept us
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. And Beth, there's something about peer support graduation from a peer support training that is so magical. If someone doesn't believe this works, just invite them to a graduation. It changes everything. It's just amazing.
Well, it's just the little things. Like as people would get their certificate, they would say what it meant to them,
Yes.
and and then you actually really connected with the person.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was not just an illness, and so that whole person first really began in our hearts. I think then
Yes. Yes. And then
because the
something
audience was touched in a way they didn't expect.
exactly. And families especially are so uh, I always have families stand up now at graduations because they move me more than anybody else.
Well, and there, it helps shift that whole support system because it's not easy when a family has a loved one that they're not sure how to support, etc. So I think families, it was a victory for a whole lot of people,
Yes. Yeah.
and some people continued at that junior college.
I know.
Yes.
Do you have that picture? Oh, there they are. They're so beautiful. And
Well,
remember, folks, this was the late 70s.
it,
Um,
yes, and there's 18 people in this picture.
yeah.
9 girls and nine females, 9 males.
Yeah.
And I mean, all shapes, sizes, a variety, people from different backgrounds. And all I can say is the majority of them found employment. And
Yes.
one of them, Lori, actually went on and retired from Sacramento County.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I
Yeah.
got a holiday card from Jim. Every year I'd get a holiday card. And now you talk about his parents passed, he stayed in work, and I mean, it was amazing.
He would send me a card once in a while, and just remind me who he was.
Yep,
And
and he got himself a dog and a pet, and that he would, and he also played music, and so it was just lovely what happened. But
yes,
there were lots of issues around charts,
oh yeah,
office space,
the usual.
yeah, all the usual.
Yeah. So
And
that was our first foray into peer support. We didn't call it that in those days. But that was the first. And then Beth, I want to add what we did a few years later. Remember how we had the peer operated crisis alternative?
it
I
was
think we
called
were,
Crisis Residential Alternative to Civil Commitment.
yes, and I think we got the idea from Steve Fields.
Exactly. Very
Yeah,
good.
he every once in a while I remember something.
Well, that's a good one because we already kind of had things cooking. And
Yes.
and so then we wrote the Crisis Residential Alternative to Civil Commitment Grant. And Tom Greenfield from uh, Berkeley, Oakland came up and did the research. Remember that?
Right. Yes. Yes. Can you find that research paper anywhere?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Okay. I want to put it in the blog.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's
Well,
do that.
yes, because a part of that whole thing, beginning of this consumers as case managers,
Yeah.
one of the things that came out of that is um, uh, I was going back to get my degree in social
PhD.
work.
Okay.
Well, I was doing that too, but I got my social work, and in the social work thing, I developed attitudes towards mental illness scale,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and so uh, I used that in the consumer case manager grant to finish my dissertation for my PhD.
Yeah.
That because attitudes were an issue.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so we began to address, then you and Jean and a lot of people went on to address attitudes
Yeah.
and it, how to connect and be from the heart. And it both of those used that scale. And we began to understand more about how to connect and develop partnerships
Yeah.
with people that we support and learn from them.
Yes. And my thinking about that program, that what year was that? That was maybe early 80s.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, early 80s. Um, uh, what happened? That was a very successful program. But when
Well,
the county needed to find money, um, it's always the peer programs that go first, and the problem was it was it was making a big difference. The peers working there were getting weller, and the people
yes.
who came in, what a wonderful alternative to civil commitment.
Well, yes, and we even allowed like alumni to go back so that not only was it helping people um, who were coming to the crisis alternative, and people got to choose. Remember,
Mhm.
they would have a terrible time, go into the crisis center, and then they could choose to participate in the crisis res or to go into the puff,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
locked facility.
yeah,
And so it just became more and more popular as
yeah,
people found out about it.
yeah,
And then instead of going to crisis, they could go and get support at the crisis residential. And
yeah.
that's when Turning Point really got a big boost because Turning Point program, which Al Roulette now runs, they got the contract for the crisis residential alternative to civil commitment grant.
Well, that's after we got closed down.
Exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah. For not
Yeah,
for
that
bad reasons, just for money reasons, basically. Yeah,
yes.
that did help Turning Point out, right? And they were a great group to take it over. They had a good heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
They, they
and
still have that program?
um, in some form, it's
Yeah.
still there.
It's like 30 years later, but
Yes. Do you know who the taught the majority of the classes for the consumer case manager project at Sacramento City College?
no.
Sheila Boltz.
All right. Oh my
She
gosh. Yeah, that
and
was Sheila. It wasn't Al back then. It was Sheila.
exactly
Yeah,
that was Sheila Boltz.
yeah,
And I mean, you and Sheila Boltz and I go way back.
yeah. But Sheila and I started Turning Point. Um, it was, I remember a nursing home had closed down in Sacramento,
Yes.
and everyone was frantic about what are we going to do with these 50 people or whatever they were. So I got Sheila together with Doris Ash, who
Oh,
owned
yes.
that building in Sacramento. And Doris said, well, do whatever you want here. And Sheila did. And that was the beginning of Turning Point.
That was my first job after I finished my
Yeah.
internship
Yeah.
at UC Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
At Midtown Manor is what it was
Oh,
called then.
yes. Midtown Manor. Yeah.
And that is also that's where I got my first glimpse, because as I was being interviewed, there was a very tall um, black young man behind the desk, and he introduced himself. And then as Sheila took me into an interview, she said, oh, that's Rufus. Rufus received services here before. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yes, and now he works here part-time.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. That was the first glimpse. Yeah.
Yep. And it didn't last long, but it was a great idea.
Well, yeah. There was so much going on there. Constant issues going on there. You
Well, it
could
wasn't the safest building.
There's a terrible building, and we moved
Yes.
people out of a nursing home into there. So people who are used to a lot of structure and so forth. It was just, I'm amazed. I mean, it just shows you that, well, how does Margaret Mead say it? It's amazing how a small group of committed people can change the world. And that's what happened there. That's what happened there at Turning Point. And then I remember I had a friend who worked for a redevelopment agency. And I said, we really need a new building here. She said, we can't help you. And I said, well, if something ever comes up, keep us in mind. And just a few weeks went by and they said, we want to come and see the building you're in. So they came down to Midtown Manor. They went, oh, this is not good. And they found this hotel out there on Stockton Boulevard, and they said, we will redevelop this for you. So that's when Midtown Manor turned into Turning Point, was moving to the hotel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I moved with him. I worked
Yeah.
at that hotel.
Yeah.
And that was when Al Roulette came on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
At that time, Sheila ran Turning Point.
But
In that,
before Al was John Buck.
yeah, well, John Buck was director of rehab. I was director of clinical
Okay. Okay.
at at that motel, I think it was.
Hotel. Yeah.
And that's when rehab really started with it. All I can say is we got on to teaching people skills.
Yes.
And
And,
it was,
for our viewers, I just want to say, uh, if you can get, it's called different things in different states, but vocational rehabilitation, if you can tap into them for your peer support, they will be a really good partner. And people will say to me, oh, we tried and they weren't interested. Go back, because if they will pick up peer support, they'll get a lot of 26s out of it. A 26 is a case closure. I think you get it if someone works like 60 days or 90 days or something. They can get a 26, a case closure, and their fundings, their what do you call it? I'm going to say paychecks. Often, their advances, let me say, are somewhat based on the number of 26s they get. So it's a win-win-win. If you can just explain that to them in a way that they get it, this could be a wonderful opportunity for them to really fund things at work, because they have, it's, being a folk rehab counselor is a tough job. Finding jobs for people and getting successes out of it. This is an easy route. Sorry, Beth, I just had to leap into that little thing there.
Well, no, it makes perfect sense, Lori, because the whole consumer case management program was successful because not only did people get supported education, if you will, because that's what we did at City College,
Yeah,
wasn't called that at the time,
right.
but we had the instructors, everybody was around to support the students as they were in that environment. And then it was supported employment per se without, and we didn't have vocational counselors as active in the consumer case management project as we did in the crisis residential,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
we kind of figured that out, that supported employment is so important, because
Yes.
if you don't have something meaningful to do in your life,
Oh gosh, yeah.
what do
Employment.
you say?
Yeah. Employment is the most healing tool we have.
Well, it gives you some income so that, you can improve the food that you buy. You
Yeah.
can improve the, things you do in your life. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have to sell you on this. It's great. And Voc
Well,
Rehab is where they can help with
they've got the
supported,
money to do that.
exactly, both supported education and supported employment. They can
Yeah.
also help people in school if it's training toward a job.
Yeah. 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 So it's a marriage made in heaven.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I just have to add one little thing to this, Beth. Um, you've probably read Henry Nouwen, a lot of Henry Nouwen, and I have too. And um, Henry, I was already on this path that we're just describing here, and but Henry Nouwen opened up something for me that he just fueled something that was already going on with me. And he said, if you folks don't know Henry Nouwen, let me just do a little thing here. Henry Nouwen was a Catholic priest who also had a degree in psychology. Some people call him the father of pastoral counseling, because he had a big hand in developing that vocation. Um, and then he's written a whole bunch of books, and he died 30 or so years ago. But in one of his books, he said, and this is after a long life, a long, amazing life of being a priest, being an educator at both Harvard and Yale, doing work in Mexico around people with no resources, and ending up in a facility in Canada for profoundly disabled people. So I'm just telling you that to show you the breadth and depth of his life experience. And he said, so near the end of all this, he says, I have come to know that it's not so much what I tell people or what I give people that changes them. It's what I can get them to do for me. And I had to read that a few times. Chris Martin gave me this book. I read it a couple times. And then I thought, that's so true. So what I started doing is, the minute I got my hands on someone, I know that's the wrong way to say it, but I'll just say it that way. The minute someone walked across my path, how's that? The first thing I did is give them things to do for me. I mean, if it was just simple, like, would you hand me my car keys? Would you help me carry this box out? Would you make the coffee? Could you chat with Jan because she's having a tough day? Just giving people things to do. Started. Then what they get is, there's something valuable about me. I have something to contribute. I have some way to make things better here. And it can start so small. And of course, that's what work does. It's so validating and strength affirming that, yes, that's why we do it. Sorry for all that talking.
Well, and Lori, let's not forget that one of the not working in behavioral health is not for everybody. That's clear. But for those who find meaning and purpose, they come with that lived experience. Like, we've all had issues with, well, I believe that everybody has mental health issues. Some are a little more challenging than others, but I don't think anybody really comes from a perfect family, and we find that out as we grow. But I do think, when you have experience taking, psychiatric medication, and you have experience having some kind of symptoms, it really helps when you talk to somebody else who's experiencing that for the first time or the 10th time. I just think it makes a difference.
I do too.
And look at AA. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Bill Wilson figured that out,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it hit behavioral health later, but I think it will last. It just continues.
Well, it's giving back from the point of the wound. You can feel good about yourself if you get a job, I don't know, working someplace else in a department store or a mechanic shop. You can get all the reinforcement around being a good contributor. But when you give back from the point of your wound, like, this is what hurt me, and I'm giving a gift from that point, that's really healing. I mean, look at you and me. We've both had significant mental health challenges. And we both give back from that point. I think that's what healed us, what continues to heal us.
Well, and Lori, I don't know about you, but I think for the majority of us, it at at least for me, I get so much more pleasure out of giving somebody something that if they need it, that's excellent. If they, just appreciate it. Giving seems to be bring out the connection and the love in us better than receiving. I think receiving is harder for us.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. We're not trained in that very well.
Yep, and look at what time of year it is.
Yeah.
I think Kwanzaa, see, we've had Hanukkah, we've got Christmas, we've got Kwanzaa. This time of year, is a time of celebration and giving and receiving. I think if you can get a balance in that, I think self-help is giving and receiving, sharing.
Yeah. Well, that's something we teach in peer support, as to prevent a burnout, is you give and you receive. And it gets back to Henry Nouwen. Receive. The more I can receive something from you and thank you for it, the more I'm building you up, the more I'm validating you. So receiving
Exactly.
is for all of us. Yeah.
Yes. And has it taken you a little longer to be a gracious receiver than a giver?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's this is the tale of my loving cat, Tessie. Tessie has come to join us. How's your dog, Lori?
She's much better. Yeah. She's been out barking. You probably heard her doing that. Yeah. Well,
Well,
Beth, is there anything else that you want to say before we say goodbye for a moment?
well, I think for people who have I think mental illness or mental health challenges does not discriminate. I think that it happens to, doesn't, whether it's gender, socioeconomic, doesn't matter. And so I think this is a giving time of year, a receiving time of year. And thank you, Lori, for inviting me to talk about a time where our lives passed, and hopefully I think we made a difference. And I do think we made a difference to the 18 people who graduated from and, I think self-help is here to stay and only get stronger.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's just been wonderful to spend a few moments with you and to share you with the viewers. It's just been great. So thank you very much.
And
Okay.
happy holidays, whatever you celebrate.
Okay. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that. Um, Two old ladies reminiscing about the early times of peer support. Um, I love doing that. And it reminds me of how this didn't just happen yesterday, but it started a long time ago. And what a wonderful, wonderful movement it is. And continues to grow and build. Um, when Beth and I were doing that earlier, we had no idea that things would happen the way they did. And we're just so honored to be part of the early movement. So thank you for joining us, and see you next time. And it's kind of Christmas right now. I don't know when this will air, but right now it's Christmas. So I'm just going to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you for joining us.